Welcome to Rouse Fly Box. Today we're going to tie a variation of a very old wet fly. It's a classic pattern called the cow dung. It's a very, very effective pattern for me for panfish behind a popper. I began tying this particular variation because I wanted to get the distinct contrast that you get with a mottled turkey. However, I didn't have that material and I didn't have the olive silk. So I began tying this variation and it did exceptionally well. It's been with me for quite a while now in my warm water box. Now let's go over how I tie it. I start off with a size 16 standard wet fly hook and olive dun uni thread. And we're going to start our thread. Standard. Wrap back over it. And you're going to bring your thread back to a point. You're going to be even with the point of the hook. The first material you're going to tie in that I substituted was gold mylar tinsel, fine gold mylar. And we're going to start that at the hook bend, and then we're going to wrap it back immediately. You're going to take it to a point of about 1/3 of the way into the bend of the hook, right about there, and then you're going to bring it back to the point. And at that point you're going to tie it off. A lot of the variation here was tied out of necessity for materials and for expediency. I didn't want to take too much time with this particular pattern since I go through them quite a bit. This is probably my standard for a small wet fly for panfish behind a small popper. And then at this point you're gonna bring your thread back, and then you're gonna bring it forward. Once you bring it back even, you're gonna bring it forward about one good eye length behind, and you're gonna build just slightly tapered body just with the tying thread. Next material you're going to tie in is a furnace. You can use brown. I like to use a furnace hackle, hen hackle. And you're going to tie that in about 1 eye length back. And then grab that with your hackle pliers. And you're going to bring that forward. You're going to make pretty much, if I can avoid getting everything tangled up here, you're going to make about 3 full turns. Usually I just try and use the majority of the feather. Oops. Bouncing around a little bit today. And that's about 3 turns. I don't have to be exact. You get a feel for it. And you're going to tie that off. And clip off your butt end. And at that point, you're going to tie in your wing. And instead of the mottled ginger turkey, I use the wood duck. It's a more distinct barring. It gives me a little bit more of what I'm looking for. I think for this pattern, in particular. It does the same thing with a little bit more manageable material, in my opinion. And you're going to measure it to be about, you want the tips to extend to just about the end of the hook. Couple pinch wraps. Put it in place, and I make sure it's lined up. If it's a little too long, I'll adjust it at this point. That's about right. And clip off the butt ends. And you can adjust it just a little bit since you're only tied in loosely. And a quick whip finish. Not an overcomplicated fly, and that's what this variation is. Simplification of a very old pattern. Hopefully I don't offend anybody by changing it a little bit, but I can tie a bunch of these up a lot faster than the classic cow dung, and it does much better actually for me in warm water. This is a good trout pattern as well, but I traditionally fish it as a panfish wet. And a little drop of Sally Hansen's to finish it off. And there it is. Cow dung variant. Very effective, easy to tie wet fly pattern. Does very well for panfish and does well for trout as well. Hope it adds to your box that has mine. Good luck. See you in the water.